Hello, possums. It's your Auntie Lena from Australia. Today it's Thursday already here, so I've got to wait till tomorrow to hear about the Supreme Court taking oral arguments and all of that. So we've got plenty more to talk about. So where do we start? I've got this pile of paper here of notes I've made in the last few days because lots has been happening. But let's just start with New York for a moment. And remember in the last video I did, I saw there was going to be another hiccup before we see the end of this drama and Letitia James can start taking over properties. But I thought it was sort of a small procedural thing. No, not a small thing, big thing. They've accepted the very dubious bond from the very dodgy Mr. Hankey. But on the upside, there were deals. There was lots of horse trading apparently that went on. And part of that is the money had to be in cash and to be kept in a locked box. It's so weird, all this stuff, isn't it? I don't know if it's a real locked box or that's ancient legal code for a safe or whatever, but it's in this locked box. And the Yeti cannot get his hands on it. So that is something. But what it does mean is that the appeal will go ahead. And so now we have to yawn our way through yet another appeal. You know, they already struck it down by 2/3 to the 175. So, but apparently the interest rate on the original amount, the 450 or whatever, every 9 days it goes up $1 million. So it's going to cost him a lot of money one way or another to have this appeal. Anyway, I'll read on that next time. And see how that's going. Today, Arizona indicted 18 of the Yeti's co-defendants in the interference with election case. 18 co-defendants. Love it, love it. This is good. And that includes Mark Meadows, Giuliani, a lot of them, another guy who was in charge of something, Mike Roman. So you watch. It will be like Georgia. They'll all start turning on each other. Oh, I just picked up the phone. Oh, I just carried his briefcase, you know. So let's have a look at how that's going to go. And of course, Trump, the Bino, billionaire in name only, etc., is at the heart of this as the defendant number one. What do you call them? Unindicted co-defendant number one. So at least they've got that bit right. Numero uno. So let's have a look at how things are going to move forward in Arizona, which is also just today, I think, the lower house, or however it works, has battered away that stupid 1864 ruling, but not enough, not enough. Right. So it might not be allowed to go ahead, or it might. And so there's women all over the United States who are forced to live in 1864 one way or another. So let's have a look at Arizona. Let's have a look. Oh, that's interesting. Do a bit bigger of a spread here. All right. So this Arizona case with the co-defendants. I think this is a victory with the Six of Wands. This is a victory for Arizona. Good on them, because on the one hand, as I was just describing, profoundly conservative, and it's taken 3.5 years, but getting there. Starting to move forward with this case. Right? I'm really pleased to see that at the heart of the reading. The obstacle, and I think it's still an obstacle for them, is this Two of Wands strategically. Who to name, who not to name, what order to indict them in. All that stuff's been underlying this. I think they've been, in fairness, they've been working since the election on this, but it, as we really know, as armchair lawyers, takes a long, long time. But they've got there, and this suggests to me they've got their strategy moving forward. Now they have all the good cards, and then we move to the not so good cards. So let's break this down. They then get Temperance. They've been very fair and balanced, unlike myself, in moving this forward. They don't want to, this means to me, they don't want to have any loopholes that someone can revisit later and drive a truck through. So they've been very thorough and very calm, if you like, legally about this. Right. The Sun, I think even the investigators are shocked by what's been unearthed, right? I think they're absolutely shocked, because we know these things happened, but it's still a shock when you look at the fine print of who spoke to who lied about this and all of it. I think now the light will be shone for everybody. They're waiting now for the testimony to come forward. Look, these cards are very similar. Two of Wands, Three of Wands. This one, waiting for the ships to come in, is about how this testimony will unfold. Now the rubber's hit the road, right? Now the rubber's hit the road, how they're going to behave amongst each other, these co-workers, because now all of a sudden they were living their lives and now they've got to make a choice. Will they go to prison, quite literally, or will they make deals? Outcome card, they're thinking on it. They're thinking on it, retreat. But remember, for those learning tarot, Four of Swords, see the stained glass windows, puzzle to be solved. So the legal case still has to be streamlined and sequential. But for these 18, they need to think, how am I going to get out of this? Right. So I think with 18, they'll start to roll fairly quickly. It'll be very similar. It'll be a mirror of the Georgia case, and deals will be offered, etc. Personally, I think put a timeline. I mean, I know my lawyer friends have said they do give them a timeline, Lena. You know, you agree to this deal by this date or else. But I think they still need to be a bit stricter with them, because I'm afraid the United States of America doesn't have a lazy year or two to go through all this stuff. Right? So get your act together. But that's the upside of Arizona for today. As I said, mixed bag given their ruling on women. Oh, did you see the Yeti's speech in Pennsylvania, where he single-handedly rolled back Roe versus Wade and gave this decision back to the states? People had been trying to do it for 50 years, but I did it, and everyone loves it. Everyone loves it. Everyone is so happy. Now 10-year-olds can continue their pregnancies, but they don't have to in another state. That's awesome leadership, Donald. Yep. And as I would say to all those men, the next time you get pregnant, you can have an opinion on this, right? Anyway, moving on. While I'm shuffling, Congress, aka the Valley of the Hyenas, has passed possibly the world's most unnecessary piece of legislation because they're so bad at legislating, to ban TikTok. What will the Senate say? I don't know, you know. As if it wouldn't take the average 13-year-old or 24-year-old 7 minutes to work a way around it when it's out there in the rest of the world. Anyway, here we go. So I won't read on that until nearer the time with the Senate. Suffice to say, after 3 years in office, they've come up with, you know, a bicycle for a fish. You know, they're so onto it. Anyway, Project 25. I keep getting asked about this and it keeps falling off the list. So let's have a look at Project 25. And that's the effort to change how the executive branch works. In other words, how to tinker around with the fundamentals of what used to be a democracy. So Project 25, you keep seeing it come up here and there. Who's behind it? Is it going to catch on? What is the energy around Project 25? Uh, Project 25. We'll do a shorter read on this. Oh, don't think it's going far fast. Oh, it does get the victory card. Really? Okay. Now, this has 3 major arcanas out of 5 cards. Don't like that. I hope they would just come and go in the night. But the fact they've got 3 majors is an indication they're well organised and they're funded. So basically, this is what they want to do. This is their mission statement. How did we destroy American democracy? Oh, can we do it in the next year or so? Let's see. I mean, that's their goal. That's their goal. What is their obstacle? Well, things are still holding just in the political system, you know. I think as there are a few more legal wins going forward, it will help everyone have more confidence too. But this is tied to the one I'll do very quickly about the Supreme Court and immunity, right? This is getting to the nitty-gritty. They may be a cloudy group, but this gets to the heart of the system. The Hierophant represents all the conventions of a working society in terms of, you've got the White House there and the church and the courthouse. It's democracies need leadership and structures. You can fight over the fine print of that endlessly. However, there's a basic premise that they need to be in place and they seem to be holding. I think they're going to have some sort of victory, much as I hate to say it. However, it will then be held up, the hangman, right? So it's like they'll have a win, but then the win won't go ahead. And this also with the hangman involves a different way of looking at the same issue. And it also involves the potential for sacrifices that need to be made. So don't be surprised if you hear more of them. But I think with this is going forward, hopefully past November, they won't be such a threat. Let us hope. Okay. So now, just give me a moment here. Where's my other list? While I'm scanning my notes, oh yes, it was Barr and Epstein. A lot of you wrote to me about that. Oh, put all your cards in, Lena. I was leaving out half a dozen. Put my cards in. While I'm raving, there's going to be a remake of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. Now, if you haven't seen the original Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, it was one of the Australian movies like Crocodile Dundee that just went global. I guess it was the early 90s or something. And famous, famous, famous. And it's also gone into the gay lexicon in all sorts of ways. Um, there's talk of a remake of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. Meanwhile, someone's found the original bus that was used. Basically, no, I won't tell you the story. You either know it or you haven't seen it and you should see it. The bus that they used has been found in a junkyard in the bush. And so there's a fundraiser to get the bus back and running. And so if you're so moved, the fund is called Save the Queen. You've got to love that. Okay, now, oh yes, I'm not going to actually read any more on David Pecker for now, but the excellent thing is his New York testimony. He did have a sweetheart deal. He'd rather not be in jail, so he's really forthcoming. What do you want to know? Because I'm here to tell you the lot, right? And he said on more than one occasion, on more than two occasions, on more than three occasions, the conversations were around promoting the Yetis campaign. Not just personal, oh, you're married, mate. I said, mate, look, I can help. I'll kill this story. No, he mentioned the C word, campaign. And that's the guts of this case in New York, that it is electoral fraud. It also backs up Michael Cohen's testimony because he is a convicted felon, because he did lie under oath, and all those things we know about bad Michael. Well, most of us, I can't speak for everyone here, but most of us agree he's done a genuine mea culpa in the last few years. It backs up everything Cohen said. So that's really important. So before we get to the Supreme Court, oh my God, I need a new prescription. I really do. We're going to have a quick look. Bill Barr's father had a friendship with Epstein. Bill Barr himself had a friendship with Epstein. Is any of this going to come back and haunt Bill Barr? Now that he's reinvented himself for the 14th time, I don't know. He must just stare in the mirror when he's having a shave and think, who will I be today? But he has a haunted look. So let's have a look. Will this come back, the Epstein connection come back to haunt Bill Barr? Okay. Oh, I think some women are going to come forward. I think, look, a lot of men went on the Lolita Express. A lot of men went to the island. I'm not here to moralize about what adults do together. couldn't care less. But we know a lot of these girls, and we still have to hear about a few boys, I'm sure, were minors. So that's when it becomes a problem. I think that's why he's looking so haunted. This is, I think, the real problem. The Knight of Wands, now normally pages are messengers. This is a Knight of Wands. This Knight of Wands, I think, is actively threatening him. If you don't shut up and be quiet, we've got the pictures, we've got the tapes, whatever, whatever, whatever. I think this is how the Yeti, or not even the Yeti personally, but the team is keeping Bill Barr in line. But I think this is one or more, possibly three young people coming forward and going, I didn't want to say anything until now, but there was Bill Barr. Entertainment purposes only, YouTube. Entertainment only. Oh, oh. Now, the big one. And then after the Supreme Court, I want to talk briefly. Today in Australia, the 25th of April, is Anzac Day. And that's the equivalent, I guess, of Memorial Day in the US, right? And I'll explain that at the end because I think it's important. Okay, so here we go. With this notoriously conservative, and if you spoke to Sheldon Whitehouse, notoriously corrupt Supreme Court, there are issues with the fundamentals. Now, I was thrilled to see today that the majority of Americans, including 70% of Republicans, don't think the president should have full immunity. They're quite clear on that. When they're given just that question on its own, 70% of Republicans, and I think it's 86% overall or something, because of course it's most Democrats. This is like gun control. These sort of figures keep coming up, but then no one's game to follow them up, you know? So people are not happy with this aspect of the Yeti. Not the MAGAs, because they want to bend the whole world around to make it a nice place for their bino. They're not rational. They can't be helped. I'm sorry. But I'm talking millions of people who are centrist, I guess you'd say, centrist to right, don't think the president. And now, why don't they think that? That's because I think many of them are old enough to remember civics, when civics used to be taught in school. Now, I've no doubt it used to be taught very badly and was boring, and that's when you'd sneak out and have cigarettes with the boys. But it was still important because I think if you ask most of these MAGAs, they would have no idea there's such a thing as the separation of church and state. I really don't think they've heard it. They've gone to their Southern Baptist church, they've gone to their evangelical heartlands, they've gone to the gun clubs, and they haven't heard it, you know. But let's see what this Supreme Court is going to do. They hear oral arguments tomorrow. I don't know when they'll deliver the judgment. What are they going to come up with? What are they going to come up with? Okay. Oh, the extreme court. What are they going to do? Oh, what's on the underside of the deck? This is the card du jour on the underside. Hmm. All right. The problem is money, but also, as I harp on about, values and how those two, one can sabotage the other. And if you're getting your nephew's college paid by a billionaire called Harlan Crow, and if you're having exotic holidays at the expense of various moguls and things, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, not liking that at all. I think strong woman here who's talking sense, that would not be Amy Barrett Comey or whatever her name is. This is someone more old school. It could even be the ghost of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She's got the purple veil. She might be getting to them beyond the veil. I love that. Okay. Biden, my card, King of Cups. Biden's entering into their thinking. Oh, I'll return to this. But they're confused. Poor pets. Should the president have complete immunity to do whatever he wants? I don't know. I have to think about it. I have to listen to everybody because it's 3 years since an insurrection, but we haven't thought about it. I think this is a very compelling speaker, very compelling as part of the oral arguments, right? But why has Biden turned up? I think his name is being used in vain, or at least hypothetically. What I get from this, right, the fact they're remotely deluded or confused about this is a worry in itself. I'm going to say, I think they're going to come out with weasel words. They're not going to come out with an absolute no, he has no immunity. I don't think so. Love to be wrong. You know how much I love being wrong. Ding. Weasel words. But you know what? If they do, and this might be the case that is being made here very strongly, the point is Biden could, doubt he would, but he could say, oh, okay, I'm king now, right? And I'm going to reinvigorate the Supreme Court bench and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. You know, it's like what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I think I think they're using examples to each other in the oral arguments. If this president, 45, was allowed to get away with it, what's to stop Biden doing X, Y, and Z? A fair question. Let's see. Okay, guys. Now, I'm going to show you a photo of my daddy because it's our Memorial Day. And so that's Jerry. Hmm. And this is the day before he went to war. They recruited his mob on a Tuesday. They got their uniforms on a Wednesday, and they were sent to New Guinea on Thursday. Right? Now, he had a terrible war because his battalion was forgotten. They got no supplies, they got no food, they got no uniform, changes of uniform, no medical help. He was shot in the arm. There was no medical help. Had to gouge out the bullet himself. They had to live in the jungle, not knowing what would kill them. He only survived. Out of his battalion, only 3 survived, and they were saved by the native Papua New Guineans who took mercy on them and gave them something to eat and dressed their wounds with local herbs. Otherwise, he wouldn't have made it. He came back weighing 7 stone, right? Was never the same again and ended up in a war hospital for 5 years later in his life, which I remember acutely. And because it's Anzac Day, I'll just tell you briefly the story of the Anzacs. So Australia, New Zealand Army Corps, they were taking direction still from Britain in the First World War. So this is the First World War. Dad was in the Second, but we're going back 100 years ago. And because they were the colonials, they were sent by boats to land on a beach in Turkey. There was about 10 yards of sand and sheer cliffs. So as they came off the boats, the Australian and New Zealand soldiers, they were shot at by the Turkish soldiers, and 200,000 died, boom, like that. And that's why every Anzac Day I try and connect with one of my Turkish friends and talk about this. This is how we have to get past war. And it's so important. And looking at what is happening all over the world now, but watching the slow motion potential assault on Rafah is heartbreaking. Israelis were assaulted in their own country. Terrible. In 22 breaches, and terrible, appalling things happened. Absolutely appalling. And the hostages who are still not accounted for. And I understand the reflex. You just want to hurt and destroy those who did this. I understand the reflex. However, the Gazans were told to all move to the south, move to the south. 80% of Gaza, as we all know, has been destroyed. And now we're talking about the assault on Rafah, which is fish in a barrel. It's not going to make Israel safe. And I'll just close now with the words from a very old Jewish grandmother who said to me, the answer to barbarism must never be savagery. She said that because she's seen it. So soul searching needs to be done. So blessings to the memory of the Anzacs, to all who have suffered in war and to all who are going through it again now, because collectively we haven't got the lesson. So I'll leave you with that. And you're welcome to go and look up anything on Anzacs. Okay? Take care, guys. All the best, and I'll be back before you know it.